Hello everyone, I am Dr. Deepa. Today we will learn about the shoulder joint. The shoulder joint of the upper limb is also known as the glenohumeral joint. The word glenohumeral refers to the glenoid cavity of the scapula and the humerus, that is the upper end of the humerus. So we study the joint under the following headings, that is the type, the articular surfaces, ligaments, the bursae, relations, the arterial and the nerve supply, movements and the clinical importance of the joint. To begin with the type of the joint, here is the multi-axial ball and socket variety of synovial joint. Yes, that is the variety of ball and socket variety of synovial joint. The multi-axial, as it possesses the 3-degree freedom of movements. Hence, it is called as the multi-axial ball and socket type of the synovial joint. Moving on to the articular surfaces of the joint here, as we can observe, the articular surface is contributed by the head of the humerus and the glenoid cavity, which is appreciated in both anterior view as well as the posterior view. This is the enlarged anterior view of the joint representing the articular surface, as we can make out the head of the humerus, which is one of the part of the upper end of the humerus. The black dotted line represents the anatomical neck here. The anatomical neck of the humerus separates the upper end from that of the head. We can see the surgical neck over here, which is separating the shaft of the humerus from that of the upper end. So this is about the head of the humerus. On the other hand, the shallow glenoid cavity of the scapula make out the other part of the articular surface. The glenoid cavity represents the two tubercles here, that is, over the upper end is the supraglenoid tubercle and in the lower end is the infraglenoid tubercle. The glenoid cavity represents the peripheral margin. The articular surfaces of the joint is covered by the cartilage here, which is called as the hyaline cartilage. Yes, the articular surfaces on both the bones is covered by the cartilage, which is the type of the hyaline type of the cartilage. So the blue color in this picture represents the hyaline cartilage over both the articular surfaces. So, but the arrangement of the hyaline cartilage is different. When we talk about the head of the humerus, when we speak about the head of the humerus, the arrangement is different here. The hyaline cartilage is thick over the center of the head, whereas it is thin at its peripheral margin. Whereas on the other hand, when we talk about the glenoid cavity, in case of the glenoid cavity, the arrangement of the hyaline cartilage here, when we look for, the cartilage is thick at the periphery, whereas it is thin at the center. So when we see the glenoid cavity, the arrangement of the cartilage is thick at the periphery. It is thick at the periphery and thin at the center So this is about the arrangement of the hyaline cartilage over the head of the humerus and the glenoid cavity. So the articular surfaces of both the bones is covered by the hyaline type of the cartilage. The margins of the glenoid cavity here represents the fibrocartilaginous rim, that is, the peripheral margin of the glenoid cavity is giving attachment to the fibrocartilaginous rim, which makes up the glenoid labrum. So glenoid labrum is nothing but the thick fibrocartilaginous rim which covers the peripheral margins of the glenoid cavity, which is triangular in cross section. As we can see in this section, that is the pink represents the glenoid labrum over here. The presence of the glenoid labrum appears to increase the depth of the glenoid cavity. So this is about the type and the articular surfaces of the joint over here. When we talk about the ligaments of the joint The ligaments of the joint are in total 5 in number. There are 5 ligaments of the shoulder joint. These 5 ligaments are: number 1 is the fibrous capsule, the fibrous capsule of the joint. Then next comes the glenoid labrum. Then next is the glenohumeral ligaments, and the coracohumeral ligament, and there is something called as transverse humeral ligament. So I repeat, the 5 ligaments of the shoulder joint are the fibrous capsule, the glenoid labrum, the glenohumeral ligament, the coracohumeral ligament, and the transverse humeral ligament. We will look for the ligaments one by one. To moving on to the very first ligament, that is the fibrous capsule. This fibrous capsule envelops the entire joint. The fibrous capsule forms a loose envelope which permits free movement of the joint. So this fibrous capsule is attached over the articular margins on the either side. Over the scapula, that is, the fibrous capsule is attached to the scapula. As we can see here, the capsular ligament over here, which is the fibrous capsule. This fibrous capsule is attached medially. It is attached medially over the margins of the glenoid cavity. So the attachment of this fibrous capsule medially is over the margin of the glenoid cavity, which covers the glenoid labrum. That is, the attachment of the fibrous capsule is outside the glenoid labrum. It is outside the glenoid labrum. And this attachment of the fibrous capsule over the glenoid cavity, which includes the attachment of the long head of biceps. Yes, the attachment of the fibrous capsule includes the long head of biceps, which is taking its attachment from the supraglenoid tubercle. So this is about the attachment of the fibrous capsule medially over the glenoid cavity. So the attachment of the fibrous capsule medially is over the margins of the glenoid cavity outside the glenoid labrum, and this attachment includes the origin of the long head of the biceps from the supraglenoid tubercle of the scapula. So this is the attachment of the fibrous capsule along the medial side. So when we talk about the attachment over the lateral end, that is, the attachment of the fibrous capsule is over the anatomical neck of the humerus. It is laterally attached to the anatomical neck of the humerus, but the attachment is deficient at two sides. It is deficient at two sides. That is, number one is the intertubercular sulcus, that is the upper end of the intertubercular sulcus. As we can see, the first deficit point of the fibrous capsule is over the upper end of the intertubercular sulcus. As we can see over here, the upper part of the intertubercular sulcus is deficient of the fibrous capsule, as this part allows the passage of the long head of the biceps muscle in through the bicipital groove. So this is the first deficient site. The second deficient site is inferomedially. The second deficient site is the inferomedial part of the anatomical neck. The inferomedial part of the anatomical neck, where the fibrous capsule descends about 1 centimeter down to reach the surgical neck of the humerus. So it descends about, or it extends about 1 centimeter below to encroach onto the surgical neck of the humerus. So this is about the two deficit points where the fibrous capsule is devoid in case of its attachment over the lateral end. So this is about the attachment of the fibrous capsule onto the joint over here. I repeat, the fibrous capsule is attached over the peripheral margins of the cavity, that is the joint. So along the medial aspect, the fibrous capsule is attached to the margins of the glenoid cavity outside the glenoid labrum, and this includes the attachment of the long head of the biceps from the supraglenoid tubercle. On the other hand, the lateral attachment of the fibrous capsule is over the anatomical neck of the humerus except at two areas, that is, one is at the upper end of the intertubercular sulcus, which allows the passage of the long head of the biceps. The second point is the infерomedial part of the anatomical neck, where it extends about 1 centimeter down to reach the surgical neck of the humerus. So this is about the attachment of the fibrous capsule. The next ligament to be mentioned is the glenohumeral ligament. The glenohumeral ligaments are in total 3 fibrous bands. The glenohumeral ligaments are represented by the 3 fibrous bands. They are represented by the 3 fibrous bands, which are actually the thickening of the fibrous capsule itself. They are the thickening of the fibrous capsule, that is the anterior part of the fibrous capsule. Yes, the anterior part of the fibrous capsule is thickened to form 3 bands. 3 bands which make up the glenohumeral ligaments. So these 3 fibrous bands are the superior band, the middle band, and the inferior band. The middle and the inferior band. So these are the 3 fibrous bands which make up the in total glenohumeral ligaments. The superior band, as we can see here, the superior band of the glenohumeral ligament is here. This is what we see. This is the superior glenohumeral band. This is the middle fibrous band, and this is the inferior fibrous band. All these 3 together represents the glenohumeral ligament. The superior band lies parallel to the biceps tendon, and this superior band is seen attached to the upper end of the lesser tubercle. Yes, the superior band is attached to the upper end. It is attached to the upper end of the lesser tubercle. The middle band is attached to the lower end of the lesser tubercle. The superior band is attached to the upper end of the lesser tubercle. The middle band is attached to the lower end of the lesser tubercle, whereas the inferior band is seen to be attached to the lower part of the anatomical neck. It is attached to the lower part of the anatomical neck of the humerus. So this is about the attachments of the glenohumeral ligament in total. So the glenohumeral ligaments represented by the 3 fibrous band. It is represented by the 3 fibrous band, the superior, middle, and the inferior. The superior band, as we can see here, is getting attached to the upper end of the lesser tubercle. The middle band is seen to get attached to the lower end of the lesser tubercle, whereas the inferior band of the glenohumeral ligaments is getting attached to the lower end of the anatomical neck of the humerus. So this is about the 3 fibrous bands together make up the glenohumeral ligaments of the shoulder joint. They are not the separate ligament, but the thickened anterior part of the fibrous capsule itself. The next ligament is the glenoid labrum. As we have already spoken about the glenoid labrum, the glenoid labrum is the thick fibrocartilaginous rim which is attached to the margins of the glenoid cavity, and it is triangular in cross section. The glenoid labrum increases the depth of the glenoid cavity, thus helping to roll the ball of the joint easily. The other ligaments are the coracohumeral ligament and the transverse humeral ligament. The coracohumeral and the transverse humeral ligament. So here this is the ligaments, that is the glenohumeral ligament, which I have just now discussed. The glenoid labrum, as I have already told you, it is a fibrocartilaginous rim. The glenohumeral ligaments, superior, middle and inferior, as seen in this picture. The other ligaments are the transverse humeral ligament, which is attached over the upper part of the lips of the intertubercular sulcus, and this transverse humeral ligament acts as a retinaculum to hold the tendon of the biceps brachii in its position, as it lies over the long head of the biceps tendon. The last leftover ligament is the coracohumeral ligament, which is seen here, which is extending from the lateral border of the coracoid process to reach the humerus. That is, the coracohumeral ligament is attached to the anatomical neck of the humerus between the greater and the lesser tubercle. So coracohumeral ligament from the lateral border of the coracoid process to the anatomical neck of the humerus. The transverse humeral ligament, which is attached to the upper end of the intertubercular sulcus between the two lips, and it occupies the long head of the biceps in its position. So this is about the ligaments of the shoulder joint. So in total, the ligaments are: number one, the fibrous capsule, the glenohumeral ligaments, the glenoid labrum, the coracohumeral ligament, and the transverse humeral ligament. Next is the bursae of the joint. There are around 4 main bursae. These 4 main bursae are: the very first is the subscapular bursae. The subscapular bursae number 1. The second is the bursae, that is the synovial sheath. Synovial sheath around the long head of the biceps, along the long head of the biceps tendon. Biceps tendon. So third is the bursae, that is the infraspinatus bursae. Infraspinatus bursae. The fourth and the very biggest one is the subacromial bursae. Subacromial bursae. So these are the 4 main bursae related to the shoulder joint. The bursae are the subscapular bursae, the synovial sheath present around the long head of the biceps tendon, the infraspinatus bursae, and the subacromial bursae. We will look for the bursae one by one. The subscapular bursae intervenes between the, as here in this picture, the lateral view of the joint showing the bursae. Mainly we can appreciate the subacromial bursae here. Now what is we see here, this is the coracoacromial ligament between the coracoid process and the acromion process. The subacromial bursae here is seen to be appreciated, located between the supraspinatus tendon and the coracoacromial ligament. Between the supraspinatus tendon and the coracoacromial ligament. This bursae, that is the subacromial bursae, is seen to be located here, but we can also see the same bursae, that is the subacromial bursae, as it extends forward and comes to lie. When it comes to lie deep to the deltoid, the same bursae is mentioned as the subdeltoid bursae. So the subdeltoid bursae is nothing but the extension of the subacromial bursae. This subacromial bursae is the non-communicating bursae, that is, it does not communicate with the joint, and this acts as a secondary socket to allow the lateral rotation of the humerus. It acts as the secondary socket for the lateral rotation of the humerus during overhead elevation of the arm. So this is the important bursae which acts as the secondary socket. So this is about the subacromial bursae, which is also called as the subdeltoid bursae. The other bursae which has been mentioned is the subcapsular bursae, which is seen between the tendon of the subscapularis and the fibrous capsule, the infraspinatus bursae, the synovial sheath. The synovial sheath, as we can see here, which is lying around the tendon of the biceps, which is the continuation from the joint. The bursae continues around the long head of the biceps until it reaches the surgical neck of the humerus, till it reaches the surgical neck of the humerus. So we can also make out the subscapular bursae over here. As I have told, it lies between the tendon of the subscapularis and the fibrous capsule, the synovial sheath, and the other bursae which I mentioned is the infraspinatus bursae. So these are the important bursae related to the shoulder joint. Here we can see the picture showing the subdeltoid bursae. As I have already told you, subdeltoid bursae is nothing but the extension of the subacromial bursae itself. So beneath the coracoacromial arch, the bursae is called as the subacromial bursae, whereas the same bursae extends downwards beneath the deltoid, makes up the subdeltoid bursae, as we can see over here. This is the synovial sheath covering the long head of the bicep deep to the transverse humeral ligament, reaching up till the surgical neck of the humerus. Now in this picture we can see the subdeltoid bursae over here. Moving on to the arterial and the nerve supply of the joint is mainly by the axillary or the circumflex nerve, also contributed by the suprascapular nerve and also the lateral pectoral nerve. So this is about the nerves which supply the joint. Moving on to the arterial supply, the blood supply is mainly by the anterior and the posterior circumflex humeral artery, also contributed by the suprascapular arteries. So this is about the bursae of the joint and the nerve and the blood supply of the joint. Moving on to the relations of the joint. The relations of the joint are mainly the muscles as a whole. There are anterior relations, the posterior relations, the superior relations or relations above the joint, and the inferior relations. The inferior relations. So the anterior relations of the joint are the subscapularis, the bursa deep to the subscapularis, which communicates with the joint cavity within, and the coracobrachialis and the short head of the biceps. So they make up the anterior relations. The posterior relations are mainly the infraspinatus, the teres minor, and the posterior fibers of the deltoid. The superior relations or the relations above the joint means mainly made by the supraspinatus muscle, the subacromial bursae, and the coracoacromial ligament. The coracoacromial ligament. Inferiorly, the relation is mainly by the axillary nerve and the posterior circumflex humeral vessels. The axillary nerve and the posterior circumflex humeral vessel, and also the tricep, that is the long head of the tricep, which make up the inferior relations. So all these are the relations of the joint. In this case we can make out the deltoid muscle, which makes up the relation in front of the joint, behind the joint, and also superior to the joint. So the deltoid makes up the relation of the joint in its anterior part, posterior part, and the superior part. So this is about the relations. The second thing which is to be noticed here, the muscles, that is the four muscles which are the supraspinatus, number one, the subscapularis, the teres minor, and the infraspinatus. These are the four muscles which mainly contribute in strengthening up the fibrous capsule of the joint, which is called as the rotator cuff muscles. They are called as the rotator cuff muscles. The rotator cuff muscles which mainly contribute in strengthening up the joint. So these are from anterior side, it is the subscapularis. From posterior side, it is the two muscles, that is infraspinatus and the teres minor, and the supraspinatus from above. These four muscles mainly strengthen up the fibrous capsule and strengthens the joint, hence called as the rotator cuff. But the joint is weak from its inferior part, from its lower end, as it is related to the nerve and the vessels, but it is also related to the long head of the triceps. So the joint is weak from its lower end. So this is about the relations of the joint. Within the fibrous capsule, the joint is related to one tendon, that is the long head of the biceps. The long head of the biceps tendon make up the relation of the joint within the fibrous capsule, as we can see over here. The B represents the long head of the biceps tendon. Moving on to the movements of the joint, as I have already mentioned, the shoulder joint is multi-axial, that is, it possesses 3-degree freedom of movement. So, the active movements permitted at the shoulder joint are the flexion, extension, the adduction, abduction, the medial rotation and the lateral rotation, and also the circumduction. So, all these are the movements taking place at the level of the shoulder joint. We will look for the muscles responsible for the movement here. Deflection of the joint is mainly caused by the muscles, that is the clavicular head of the pectoralis major muscle, the clavicular head of the pectoralis major muscle, and also the muscles of the anterior compartment, that is the biceps brachii, the brachialis, and also by the anterior fibers of the deltoid, So these are the muscles causing the flexion of the shoulder joint. So the extension of the joint is mainly formed by the posterior fibers of the deltoid, and the teres major muscle. So these two muscles, that is the posterior fibers of the deltoid and the teres major muscles, mainly bring about the extension of the joint. When we talk about the abduction of the joint, the abduction of the joint is mainly divided into three levels, that is the initial 15-degree abduction is mainly brought about by the supraspinatus muscle. Supraspinatus muscle. The 90-degree abduction, that is abduction up till 90-degree, is brought about by the deltoid muscle, especially the middle fibers of the deltoid, and the overhead abduction, that is abduction greater than 90-degree, is contributed by the infraspinatus muscle along with the teres minor and the subscapularis. The teres minor and the subscapularis. So these are the muscles making up the abduction. So initial 15-degree abduction is brought about by the supraspinatus muscle. The 90-degree abduction is brought about by the middle fibers of the deltoid, and overhead abduction is contributed by the infraspinatus, the teres minor and the subscapularis muscles. So these are the muscles making up the abduction movement. The adduction is mainly contributed by the muscles which are attached to the intertubercular sulcus, that is the pectoralis major muscle, the teres major muscle, and also the latissimus dorsi, along with the anterior fibers of the deltoid. So these are the muscles causing the adduction. So the medial rotation and lateral rotation. So the medial rotation is contributed by the anterior fibers of the deltoid mainly, along with the pectoralis major, the teres major, and the lateral rotation is mainly contributed by the posterior fibers of the deltoid along with the infraspinatus and the teres minor, along with infraspinatus and the teres minor. So these are the muscles causing the various movements of the shoulder joint. So this was the end of the shoulder joint discussion. So we have studied about the type of the joint, the articular surfaces, the ligaments of the joint, the bursae, the arterial and the nerve supply, the relations and the muscles causing various movements of the shoulder joint. We will look for the clinical importance of the shoulder joint in our next video. Thank you.